तुल्यन्निजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिर्वोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यस्साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयं तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये बीजस्यान्तरिमाङ्कुरो जगदिदं प्राङ्निर्विकल्पं पुनः मायाकल्पितदेशकालकलना वैचित्र्यचित्रीकृतं मायावीव विजृम्भयत्यपि महायोगी वयस्वेच्छया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ ध्यानश्लोक फर्स्ट एंड 9। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः। ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः। 11th verse। अथ द्वितीयोऽध्यायः। श्रीभगवानुवाच अशोच्यानन्वशोचस्त्वं प्रज्ञावादांश्च भाषसे गतासु न गतासूंश्च नानुशोचन्ति पंडिताः। So ashocyananvashocastvam tvam ashocyan ashocyan. So tvam means here Bhagavan is addressing to Arjuna, but Bhashyakara very beautifully says sarvalokanugrahartham Arjunam nimitti kritya aha Bhagavan Vasudevah ashocyaniti. So making Arjuna as nimittam, as a cause, and Bhagavan gave the teaching to the entire humanity for their benefit. So this is how the Tvam is addressed. Tvam means Arjuna, but it is addressed to every human being. And the situation of Arjuna is a situation of everybody. And this situation which is there cannot be, we have talked about. So this particular disease cannot be cured by any other means. Otherwise Arjuna would have solved. In fact, whatever we have material accomplishment compared to us, Arjuna was having lot more. So wealth, name, fame, everything was there with him. And still he could not solve the problem. So therefore this disease, the remedy of this disease is different. definitely. And it is different, and he could not solve it on its own. That's how he surrenders to Bhagavan, and then Bhagavan gave him a remedy. So Bhagavan addressed Arjuna and started giving remedy, but it is applicable to all of us. And also it is Ashocyan. We were analyzing that word. Ashocyan indicates that the objects which are not, or the situations or the people who you should not grieve for. So you are grieving for something which you should not grieve for. So you are unnecessarily grieving. I mean, your grief has no legitimate basis. That's all it means. By grieving this, you are not going to get what you want. That's mean. Legitimate means it will give you some benefit. After that grief or sorrow, it should benefit you, but it doesn't. So it is unnecessary, illegitimate, etc. You can tell. And what deserves grief? We started with this. Ashocyan we started analyzing, in that we kept it away, na shocyaha ashocyaha. So, shocya means the objects of grief, situations, people are. But what deserves grief in the world? So we came three kinds of substance, three kinds of objects of a grief. One is a universal, and that is the death. Death of any person, near a relative or anybody, which can cause. Death of any person doesn't cause grief, really speaking. Death of the people to whom I am related, that only causes the grief. I am sure Arjuna would not have grieved if some other people would be there in that Mahabharata war. But he definitely mentions swajanam, that indicates he looks upon them as his own relatives. And that's how they are subject to, they are the objects of the grief, because their imminent death, they have not died as such, but their imminent death, so he thought of, he imagined all this, and then he was grieving. So one is a universal cause of a grief, and that is death. Second is a personal. Personally, some situation or person can become a cause of grief for somebody. And yesterday we gave an example of one woman who enters in the home. She can become an object of grief for no reason. For no reason, you become a cause of a grief for somebody. And then the third is cultural things. And Bhagavan here says a situation, says Ashocyan, means nothing of these three kinds of things, in neither a universally, nor a culturally, nor a personal basis. Any object, situation, people should not become a cause of a grief for anybody, for any human being. That's what it means. So you have no legitimate reason for grief. And in that we will start analyzing this. Arjuna, who has picked up the sorrow, and he was, of course, using the words of a wise person. That he did in the chapter 1 itself. That he was telling something which generally wise people speak about. And so wise sounding. It is not really the words of a wisdom from him. It was sounding like a wise person. Why? Because Bhagavan said something which really negates that he is a wise. Because Bhagavan says panditaha. Panditaha means what? Pandaha means Atma Vishaya Buddhihi Yesham Te Panditaha. This word Panda means Atma Jnanam, self-knowledge, has occurred even in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad also. Tasmat Pandityam Nirvidya Balena Tisthase. Pandityam, there also the word came. And the word there, Pandityam means one who is having self-knowledge. So, Panda means Atma Vishaya Buddhi. Bhashyakara analyze this. Panda means Atma Vishaya Buddhi. The one who is having a knowledge pertaining to the self is called Panda. The person who possesses that, person who is having a self-knowledge, person who is wise, is called Pandita. Then Bhagavan says, this Pandita, the wise people, do not grieve. Na anushochanti. They don't grieve. But you are grieving. Means what? You speak the words of a wise person, but you are not wise. That's all it means. So, Bhagavan did not say that you are not wise. He should not say like that. But, it means Because Panditas do not grieve. For what they do not grieve, we'll see. But Panditas do not grieve, but you are grieving. Means even though Prajnavadam Shabhasase, you are using, Prajnavada means wise sounding words. Prajna means a wisdom. Vada means words. So you are using the words of wisdom, but yet you are grieving. But I think the Panditas, the wise people, do not grieve. Means you definitely, just in words, you have everything on your lips, but really you don't possess that wisdom. And with reference to what do the wise not grieve? That very beautifully said in the second verse, second line of the verse. Gatasun agatasumsya na anushochanti. Gatasun agatasun. Very beautifully it says, it conveys many things. Asu means a prana, the vital air. It's called asu. Gata asu. Gata asu means the pranas have gone, means dead. And agata asu means not gone. Pranas are still there, means a live person. You know, the death and the life is defined in terms of prana only, not in terms of atma. Never. That's what Bhagavan wants to convey here. So gata asun means the one from whom the prana has departed. Prana viyoga has taken place. Prana viyoga. So when the prana does a separation from this body, they depart from the body, we call death. And when the prana is, sanyoga, when they are connected to the body, then it is a life. So Bhagavan definitely says, as though Bhagavan is not using with respect to Atma at all. Death and birth has no connection with Atma. Bhagavan wants to convey. Death and birth has a connection with the prana, not with the Atma. I mean, Atma remains unaffected. Even when the prana gets connected to the body, or prana departs from the body. So with respect to that, correction or the departure of the prana, life and death has to be defined. Bhagavan wants to convey. Means Atma has nothing to do with this birth and death with respect to prana. And means if prana departs, the body dies, etc. When prana is there, the body is alive. And so Atma has no connection. Why Bhagavan has to say that? Because Arjuna was telling, Katham Bhishma Maham, Katham Hatva, Swajanam Hatva, Sukhina Syama Madhava, Swajanam Hatva, by killing them. So by killing them means as though Atma gets destroyed. By Atma gets destroyed, and that indicates that he has certain confusion regarding Atma. He feels Atma really dies. Something else dies. But he thinks Atma dies. And therefore, this confusion is there. Therefore, there is no wisdom, it indicates. And because of the confusion regarding the self, that he has a grief also. So this is indicating like this. And one teacher gave a very beautiful example. Like in a sky, there is, sometimes the clouds get connected and sometimes clouds get separated. What the space has to do with? Is there any change in the space? No. So even though space accommodates everything, in which the clouds gets connected or clouds get departed from each other, it has nothing to do with the space. Same way here, prana gets connected to the body or prana departs from the body. It has no connection with the Atma. I mean, birth and death has no effect so far as Atma is concerned. Atma does not die. Atma is not born. And therefore, Arjuna, if you are saying that these people, my people, including Bhishma and Drona, they are going to be killed in this war. So if you are thinking that Atma dies, gets destroyed, and I may be a killer of them, well, you have certain confusion. And please remember, this word confusion is a technical word. In as far as our confusion is, the attributes of one thing is looked upon somewhere else. We have talked about sunrise and everything. We have talked about fireball also. So same way here, the confusion regarding the self is there. Even though Atma does not die, body dies. When the prana or the vital life goes away, definitely it dies. But for Arjuna, it was a death of a self as though. And therefore it is confusion. The death of a body is looked upon on the self. And that is how he was grieving. So definitely he has ignorance, or he has a self-confusion, he has a self-ignorance, and also self-confusion, attributes of something he is superimposing on something else. Now, here it is told clearly, gatasun agatasunshya. So the person, this particular verse makes a distinction between the people who are dead or people who are alive. For any one of them, this wise person do not grieve. And to use now the question is, even though Swami, you told about the three causes of the grief, one is universal, one is cultural, another is a personal. Why you have taken immediately death? And death has to be discussed. Why you are taking that particular one? Because the analogy is, the death was used here is like a boxer who wants to become a world champion. And then he has to fight a single person. He has not to fight with everyone. He has to fight with only one person, that is the current champion. Current world champion, if he fights and if he wins over, he becomes a champion. So same way, there are many causes of the grief. But if the death is accounted for, which is universal cause, if that itself is a not cause of a grief, then other things will not matter. But then losing a person, losing any other thing will not cause a grief. Like losing a hair, losing teeth, or losing memory power will not be a cause of a grief. If the death itself, losing a person permanently will not be a cause, then losing teeth, etc., or hair, etc., will not be the cause of a grief. And therefore, that is how it has been taken into. This is called Prathama Malla Nyaya in Sanskritam. Prathama Malla Nyaya means if you fight with the world champion right now and win over, you automatically become world champion. You need not have to fight locally with all the people. And therefore, out of these three causes of grief, if you deal with death itself, well, then the other cultural, etc., will not remain as a cause of grief. That is why this has been discussed. Second reason for this also, why death particular thing has been taken up for, that this is not to be grieved for, because Arjuna's whole sorrow is based on the death, imminent death of relatives, as well as his Bhishma and Drona, everyone. And he was constantly in the first chapter using this, they are going to die, and then how we will remain happy, and without them, even if we get the kingdom and all the enjoyments, how can we enjoy those things? Because in that, they are all these enjoyments, objects of enjoyments are all tainted with the blood of them, and therefore I cannot enjoy all these things. Rudira pradigdhan bhogan, etc. He used this. He was constantly in his mind. The disease has arisen in which the center is the death only. So Bhagavan has thought of that, and he is, with regard to that itself, he is showing through analysis that it is not a cause of it. Even the death is not a cause of a grief. If self-confusion is there, then definitely then the death becomes a cause of a grief. If you know the self properly, well, then it will not remain the cause of a grief. What? Death. If death doesn't remain cause of grief, which is universal, which is all pervading and all the time in a person, then losing any other thing will not be a cause of grief. That's the reason. Now, what are the sources of sorrow? We'll have to again look into this. See, there can be only two sources of sorrow. Because we divide the world into two. They beautifully says, in all the time in Vedanta we always say, one is aham, I, and other is a idam, this. So there are only two things. So if you have a sorrow, then the cause could be yourself, aham, or the cause could be idam, the world. So there are only, the source of sorrow could be myself, or the source of sorrow could be the world. In other words, they say, source of sorrow could be the Atma, or the source of sorrow could be Anatma, other than Atma, or which is not Atma. Other than Atma is not a good word, which is not Atma. Because it creates a lot of problem. Other than Atma, which is not Atma. Which is not Atma. That's called an Atma. Anyway, and now first let us say Atma is a source of a sorrow. Let's say, if Atma is a source of a sorrow, well, there is no problem, because my nature is sadness, right? Atma is a source of sorrow means what? My nature is like fire is a source of a heat. Means what? The nature of fire is what? Heat. Therefore, if Atma is a source of sorrow, then definitely Atma will remain all the time sad. Then sadness is my nature. If sadness is my nature, I will have no complaint about sadness. I will have no complaint. In fact, being sad, I will be happy. Because one will be comfortable when one is in a natural state. We know that very well. And we have seen that if I am not in a natural state, I will have a lot of activity to come down to the natural state. In fact, that's how the water is struggling. Water struggles. Once you make it hot and then you switch off the stove, then definitely water struggles to give up the heat, because that's not his nature. And when it cools down, it remains comfortable. So it has no complaint. So being cool, water has no complaint. Let's say being cool, if I could see the face of a water, it's smiling. And being hot, the water is crying. I mean, that is how we should say. Therefore, any natural state will not be a cause of a complaint. In fact, that's what I want. I want to attain my natural state. I mean, that's what natural state is. I want to attain my nature. That state also, we should remove that word. So anyway, when you are sad, you will be very happy, because to be sad is your nature, if it is so, if Atma is a source of a sorrow. And Pujya Swamiji used to give a very beautiful example, which I really would like to share with you, is that a restless monkey, is a healthy, happy monkey. Restless. But because its nature is there. And restlessness is nature. And a quiet monkey, of course, is a problem. And it should be a cause of a concern for you. If suppose you are taking care of a monkey, suppose, and if it is very quiet, don't think like I am taking care. Why you? Suppose I am a caretaker of a monkey. That's better. I am a caretaker of a monkey. Here in America, people are caretaker of cats and dogs and whatnot. But anyway, here they have pet dogs and varieties of the dogs. I have never thought of that. Those kind of dogs I see here. Wonderful dogs. And cats also, so beautiful cats, my God. Anyway, what I'm saying is, so I'm a caretaker of a monkey, suppose. And every day they jump around, and one day I find them very quiet. So Swami should not have that kind of a notion that because of my association, now he has become a very quiet, and like a sadhu he has become. Immediately you take to some veterinary doctor or something, veterinary doctor, because restlessness is his nature. When monkey is restless, it shows it is healthy. He is healthy and happy. So a quiet monkey is a matter of a concern, basically. So because that's way, so whatever the natural state is there, one wants to remain in that. One is comfortable with that. If it is not there, that shows ill health, in fact. Same way, if Atma is a source of a sadness, I would be happy. I would not complain being sad. In fact, I would not try to find the cause of the sadness. That is the main crux. If you once you attain a nature, then you will not find a cause of it. Like heat is a nature of fire. What is the cause? What is the cause? If it is not hot, I will try to find the cause. Like water is cool, well, you don't have anything to say, but you don't further think into. Water is hot, then you say, Swamiji, because this, because of the I make it hot, etc. But water is cool, you won't try to find the cause. Therefore, when one attains a natural state, there is no cause of it also. So, same way here, what is natural to you cannot be a source of sorrow. We are trying to find out the cause of a sorrow here. And Bhagavan is going to give a solution of that. And it will Bhagavan is going to show even the cause of sorrow, which we independently saw in the last 2-3 days. So we are trying to find the cause of a sorrow centered on the self. That shows sorrow is not in nature of oneself. If really it is nature, I will be comfortable with it, and if I am comfortable with it, I will not have any complaint. I will not trying to find the cause also, etc. And therefore, this indicates if sorrow is my nature, we have no cause for sorrow at all. If sorrow is my nature, we have no cause for sorrow. If heat is the nature of a fire, there is no cause of heat for the fire. Could you follow what I am saying? If heat is the nature of the fire, there is no cause for heat, for fire to have a heat. That's all. So if Atma is a source of a sorrow, well, then there is no cause for sorrow. But we are trying to find the cause of the sorrow, and we want remedy also for that. That shows Atma is not a source of sorrow. So, that's what Pujya Swamiji's last statement is. If Atma is a source of a sorrow, then sadness is no more a problem. Right? But sadness is a problem. And therefore, definitely it is not in nature. Okay. Then two things are there. You said Atma is a source of sorrow. We have discovered it is not. Okay. Then Anatma is a source of sorrow. World is a source of sorrow, etc. So what you come across may be a source of a sorrow. Well, you cannot brand anything as a source of sorrow. Just like in morning, you cannot brand any object as happiness. Same way, you cannot brand any object called sadness. Any object. Swamiji, a particular object is there which is a very, very, it is a cause of sadness for everybody, like a virus. Why you are bringing virus all the time? Anyway, but I'm telling you, even so-called virus, I won't name, okay? Even so-called virus is useful for at least not to us, for some other living beings, or at least useful to itself. So therefore, we cannot brand any object as sadness. No, there is no object called sadness in the world. There is no object called happiness in the world. Object of happiness and object of sadness, they do not remain, they are not in the world, they are in the person's head. Object of sadness and object of happiness are really not there in an objective world, because you cannot tell me this is an object of happiness. If it is object of happiness, it should be being in an objective world. It should be object of happiness for everyone. It's not. It's object of happiness for me. Okay, it's a subjective world. It's a definitely subjective world. And if it is a subjective world, we should not use the word subjective world. It's the imagination. It's a superimposition only. Superimposition by whom? By me. That's all. How can you say it's a superimposition by? Because today I call it as a source of happiness. I brand it as a happiness. Tomorrow I may not. And I do not also. I do not. I throw it also. It becomes a source of hatred also. It can become. Therefore, there is no object called sadness. There is no object called happiness in the world. Well, then Anatma also, the world also, is not a source of sorrow. You cannot tell anything, any object as a sadness. Even those people sometimes, when they fight, they definitely tell to each other, "You are the cause of my sorrow," but that is just a superimposition. Anyway, because then after telling also, they tell each other's, oh, sorry, and then again they go along, and then again they find some kind of happiness in each other. After telling you are the source of sorrow, and then again find happiness there. This is a private world. I don't use the word, but actually one Acharya very beautifully analyzed this particular verse in two ways. Ishvara Srushti, Jiva Srushti. Jiva Srushti means a world created by me, and other is world created by Ishvara. That's objective world. World created by me is called subjective world, and that is how the source of sorrow is definitely a srushti or a creation created by person. Objective world is a Ishvara. It is never a source of a sorrow for anyone. It is always a source of joy, because Ishvara is a joy. He is a joy, and therefore it cannot be. If you cannot derive the joy out of world, definitely problem does not lie in the world. Problem lies here. Because you always see the objective world through the filters, and the filters are of that subjective world only, through which you try to see, and you brand particular thing also, and that's how it becomes a source of happiness or source of sorrow, etc. This is a very beautiful thing. You imagine, if Atma is not a source of sorrow, Anatma is also not a source of sorrow. Its nature is inertness. Its nature is not sadness, right? Its nature is inertness. Nature is not sadness. Atma is a nature of sadness. Well, there is no complaint. If that also, its nature is sadness, I would say we will be comfortable with it. So it is not. Then the third entity is there. Well, that's not a matter of discussion. The third entity is there, which creates all this nuisance. But we are not interested into. It is going to come later. The third entity, which is really not an entity, it's just an imagined entity, and that imagined entity creates the entire havoc. And Vedanta does a puncture into this third entity, separates the two, Atma and Anatma. Well, and then he finds that nothing is a source of sorrow. Atma is not a source of sorrow, Anatma is not a source of sorrow, and therefore there is no legitimate sorrow. That's all. That's what Vedanta does. Atma, Anatma, Viveka. Bas. When aviveka is there, confusion is there, the third entity arises, which is really not there. What is the third entity? Fireball. Fireball is a third entity. It's a third entity. There is nothing called fireball. There is nothing called fireball. In your mind there is a fireball. Actually there are two entities only. One is fire, other is iron ball. A fireball is a matter of concern for everyone. That's how it is. So this third entity, being not entity, creates all problems. Creates all problems. When you analyze into that, you find the third entity itself has no existence. Imagine, this is how it is. Anyway, so Panditas are those who do not have confusion regarding this third entity. So they know that there is no third entity. They know what is Atma, what is Anatma. So if you know Atma, definitely, naturally you know the Anatma also, because what is not Atma is Anatma. And if you know what Anatma is, then definitely you know Atma. That's how we have discussed once, that you need not have to know two entities. Some people say you should know Atma and you should know Anatma. If you know Atma in its true sense, what is not Atma you definitely know. If you have to know yet that this is Anatma, if you still have to know, you have not known Atma. That's for sure. And therefore, one of the thing has to be known. One of the thing has to be known. If you know Atma in its nature, by its nature, definitely what is not Atma also you will know. Anyway, so Panditas are those who knows this Atman, who have this Atman, Atma. Viveka, there is no confusion regarding the self, etc. And Arjuna's grief was to not knowing the difference between Atma and Anatma. This thing I will now explain you little. What happens is, see, when he said that they are going to be killed, Hatva, how can we be happy, etc. When he says this, these are my relatives, close relatives are going to be killed, then in his mind there is a self-confusion that we have to analyze properly. Actually, the Atma, it is going to come in the next word itself. Atma is called Sat. I mean, Sat means what? Trikale api tishtati iti Sat. Trikale. Kala means a time. Trikala means in all the 3 periods of time. Tishtati, remains. What remains in all the 3 periods of time is called Sat. Means as though the time is not affecting the thing. A particular thing is there which remains in all the 3 periods of time, means it does not come under the influence of time. And therefore Sat is called timeless thing, whatever it may be. It's a timeless thing. And here it is told Atma, the self, is timeless. It is going to come next verse onwards. But we'll take into what is the confusion we want to know. Because Atma, Anatma, confusion. And so basically, so Trikalepi Tishtati iti Sat. What is timeless is called Sat. Now what happens is, if it is Sat by nature, if it is Sat means if it is timeless by nature, it cannot become Asat. Because it's nature. That is its nature. Nature is something which cannot be given up. And therefore Sat cannot become Asat. The timeless cannot become time bound. That's what I mean. What is time bound is time bound. It cannot become timeless. What is timeless by nature remains timeless, being nature of the thing, and therefore it cannot become time bound also. Now Arjuna understood the self which is timeless as time bound. That is how he said killed. They are going to be killed. So this when he says that they are going to be killed, definitely he has understood the Atma as time bound. Because that is what they are going. Killed means what? Time bound. They will not be there after the war. So time bound. So as such the Sat cannot become Asat. But Arjuna understood the Sat Atma as Asat. Because he said they are killed. They are means what? He doesn't say these bodies, their bodies are going to be killed. They are killed, they says. So he is addressing the person, the conscious being. He is addressing to conscious being. If conscious being is not there, he would not use they. He would say the bodies are going to be, right? Definitely. Suppose, just by the way, suppose a death occurred, then you will not say the person. You will say the body has to be cremated, etc. Definitely. Anyway, so when he says my relatives are going to be killed, means he has taken into account that the conscious being which are really by nature, timeless, self, they are going to be killed, means they will become time bound. So Sat has been taken as a Asat, which is a big confusion. It's a very, very big confusion. Like you take into account you say the fire has a shape. Well, that's a problem. Fire does not have a shape. No, but I'm seeing in the fire. Yeah, but that shape belongs to something else. If fire is formless or it doesn't have a form, it will be there because that's its nature. It will not have any form. So if you see a form, don't take that form off the fire. That form belongs to something else and you impose upon fire. Same way, here also the Sat or the timelessness is the nature of the self. We are going to discover that timelessness is the nature of the self, and therefore timeless thing cannot become time bound. Something is time bound, but that has been taken up from here and imposed upon the self. That's how a timeless thing now looks. He is looking at timeless thing as a time bound. Just as I am looking fire as a with a form. The form which belongs to something, I look upon in a fire. So Arjuna understood them as asat. Then what is asat but? Body is asat. Asat means what? Which changes. Time bound. Time bound means what? Which is changing. Every moment which is changing is time bound. That is the effect of the time in which it is changing. Definitely body keeps changing. That's how the immediate, within no time, wrinkle appears, right? Wrinkle appears. And when somebody tells you a uncle or auntie, you feel that this nobody has, insulted you like the person in a bus. In a bus, you move every day here and there, and then nobody says. One day, one girl, college girl, and she wanted to go. I was standing, and then, uncle, please little go. I said, whom he is telling uncle? But she looks at me, because I may consider myself as a young. This is a situation, always. This is a situation. When you are 40-year-old, you will definitely would like to tell your age 25-year. And when you are 75, you would like to tell as a 95. Because even at the 95, I am of 75. And this is happening. So body keeps changing. There are states. Jayate, asti, vardhate, viparimate, apakshiyate, vinashyati. There are the 6 states. And then birth, and then ease, and then vardhate, it grows, etc., etc. So stages. So there is something called asat. Definitely. There is something changing. That is body. But it is superimposed upon the self, which is sat. The asat body is superimposed upon the self, which is sat, and now Atma, which is really sat, is looked upon as asat. This is called Atma confusion, self confusion. The form in the fire belongs to somewhere else, and the heat in the iron ball is from somewhere else. Iron ball can never be hot. In fact, if you touch iron ball, it will be always cold. Always. Metals somehow, they as though, have some kind of a coolness, let us say. So, the heat in iron ball is from somewhere else, and the shape in the fire is from somewhere else. Shape in the fire is from iron ball, heat in the iron ball from the fire. And that's how, identifying 2 things, you have a third entity. Third entity is not really born, it's in your mind only. There are only 2 entities, but you look upon the thing as a third entity. Anyway, so it is a confusion. So same way, body is asat, and means which changes, and we tell, even in Vyavahara also we tell like that. Don't say asat, asatyam. Asat means asatyam. Don't say. Means what? What is that? Like I tell one of my friend that please start some business. But I don't have money, he says. Okay, I will help you, don't worry. But you start. I will definitely support you. And then he starts a business. And he really needs money for raw materials, commodities, etc. He wanted to have. Then he came to you, and then he asked that some money, please, you give me some money. Then what money? What money? Well, you said that you will support me, all that. I didn't say that way. I said you start the business, there is a lot of money in that. I didn't say that I am going to give you money. This is called asat. Means what you said before, now you have changed. Asat means which changes. Same way the body is changing every moment. Every moment. The change is so subtle that it becomes gross change after many years, maybe. But every moment it is changing. Everything is changing. And therefore, Atma is going to die. So Atma is looked upon time-bound. Change in Atma is from the body. So there is a confusion. He has superimposed the body on Atma. Asat is superimposed upon Sat. And therefore Atma appears as Asat. This is just one part. One part. Now second part also is there. The Sat Atma, since it is identified with, in the mind, I have identified with the body. The body which is Asat appears as a Sat. Atma appears as Asat because of association with the body, and body which is really Asat, changing, appears as a Sat. How can you say body appears as a Sat? Because, you see, this person, our gentleman, says that Hatva. Hatva means killing. By killing these people, how can we be happy, etc. I am just taking one sentence. There are many sentences like that. So, when he says that, suppose if you don't kill, suppose if you don't kill, then if you are not killing, would you be able to see the death of them? No. Could you feel what I'm saying? If you don't kill them, as if in your mind the bodies are going to be there. Right? The reality is, even if you don't kill, it is going to die. Jatasya, Bhagavan is going to tell, Jatasya dhruvo mrityuhu, dhruvam janma mritasya cha, tasmada pariharyarthe natvam shochitum arhasi, etc. So, but in his mind, if I won't kill, they will be there as though. And then we all will enjoy together and they will be there for a long time with me and all that. So, as though the death of the body disappears from the mind. Suppose if you don't kill and still the death of them appears, I would tell that the person will remain sorrowful. Person will remain sorrowful if in his mind the death of anything appears. So, if he doesn't kill, then as though in his mind they are going to be there for a long time, as though Sat. So, that is how no one can imagine one's own death. When somebody dies and you go to a crematorium or something, at that time you get some philosophy. That anyway we are also going to die one day. Why all this, hassles and quarrels and all this? Ultimately we are all... But then once you come out of that particular place, the effect also leaves. You leave the effect there itself. And when you come home, as if you live a life as though you have thousands of years of life. So the Sat of the Atma appears. The timelessness of the Atma appears in the body. As if you feel the body is having a timelessness. So the time-bound nature, the change, etc. of the body appears in the Atma. So Atma appears Asat, and the Atma, or the body, appears as a Sat. The timelessness of the Atma appears here. This is called Atma Anatma Aviveka. Confusion regarding Atma and Anatma in your mind. There is no confusion at all. There is no confusion. But the confusion is definitely indicating it is in the mind. Not knowing the nature of the self, one will definitely take the Anatma, the non-self, as a self. And attributes of the non-self will definitely appear in the self, and the attribute of the self as though appear as though will live, attributes of the self appears in the non-self. That's how this Arjuna is having this kind of a confusion. And they give a beautiful example of a flower. Generally, they give example of a flower. Anyway, the red flower, suppose you know that what we call jasmine, the big one. Here I don't see much, of course, that. Anyway, jasmine flower, big. Jasud bolte. Huh? Red one, yeah. Okay, Shiva. Hibiscus. Very good. Yes, correct. I wanted that name only. Hibiscus. Correct. So the hibiscus, and here there is a hibiscus and here there is a crystal. You will see the color of this hibiscus appears in the crystal. Crystal has no color. Crystal as though become colored. Crystal has not been colored. This flower cannot color the crystal. Color appears in the crystal. The attribute of the flower appears in the crystal, right? Same way, so we have got a third entity now, a colored crystal. Actually, there is no colored crystal. The crystal is crystal only. If it is colored, you will have to take somewhere to remove that color. This is not there. You just remove it, keep it away from that. You find again it is colorless. When you bring it near, you find that it is colored. So, attributes of this hibiscus appear like that. Same way, attributes of the body appears in the self. So, but here, Swamiji, they are near. Here, they are near. How? What's the distance between body and Atma? Well, we will find out that. Please wait for some time. But it's even nearer than this. Much nearer. Anyway, so this way it appears. And therefore, in fact, I am free from the self is basically free from birth, death, any kind of a change. But because of the association with something changing, all these attributes of the Sharira are appearing. So I'm old. I'm not even a aged person. I'm not having birth. I'm not a youth. I'm not nothing. This all is dharma of basically is body. It appears here. And Arjuna's grief was not knowing that. That's how he said they are going to be killed, as if Atma is going to be destroyed. Atma is not going to be destroyed. Body is going to be destroyed. But he thinks Atma is going to be destroyed because attributes of the body appears for him in the Atma. So one of the attribute or a change is a death also. And so death appears in the self, which is really speaking timeless. What is timeless is beyond death. Am I right? Timeless, because death also is a phenomena and it is nothing but an effect of a time. That's how death is called in Sanskritam Kalaha also. So Mrityu Devata is called Kala Devata also. Anyway, so knowing the difference between Atma and Anatma will resolve the problem. And therefore, Bhagavad Gita's from verse 11 to the end of chapter 18 has only one subject matter. In this almost 600 and odd verses, the subject matter is Atma Anatma Viveka. That's all. That's the subject matter. And Arjuna's confusion gets resolved also. And at the end he says Nashto Mohaha. So that's for sure. So Gita Shastra means is a connection between this subject matter and the result, of course, as I told you, Atma as Atma, Anatma as Anatma, and Atma being free from the death, etc., definitely this disease or the sorrow born of death of something also will go away. You thought the Atma is going to die. Well, Atma is not going to die, and therefore the sorrow also will not be there. And if sorrow also will not be there, attachment also will not be there, which I will talk about in the current portion, in the subsequent portion. And who is qualified for this knowledge then? Atman, Atma, Viveka, Jnanam. A qualified person is one who has a good degree of dispassion, vairagya. Because there was an attachment. An attachment considering them as thinking them that they are the people on whom your security and your happiness lies, and they are going to die now. then what will happen to me, etc. Well, that's a confusion. They are not going to die. Nobody's death has occurred in the past. That's what the next verse immediately. Nobody's death has occurred in the past. Nobody is going to die, even in the present. Nobody will die, even in the future. Bhagavan is going to show in this Mahabharata war, lakhs of people, nobody is going to die. Nobody's death has occurred in the past also. Nobody is going to die right now also, even this in war also. After the war also, nobody is going to die. And even if in the future also, nobody is going to die. Hush. Then where is the question of your insecurity? You feel that they are not there, what will happen to me, etc. Well, so attachment goes away. Anyway, so this is how a qualified person is one who is having done a viveka, nitya nitya vastu viveka, and then the dispassion born of it, and with reference to his own, dispassion towards his own likes and dislikes, not giving importance to his own likes and dislikes, and who has a desire to get moksha, mumukshutva. He is a qualified student, and well, for Krishna we have not to say anything. He is a qualified teacher also, and he teaches so beautifully with lot of love for Arjuna. He doesn't say right away that you are fool, you don't understand this, actually there are two entities, you superimpose one upon the other, nothing. He teaches so nicely about this. And now we'll have to see the pragmatic view of this verse also, and that's very beautiful, even not taking into account this self-knowledge and all that, still nothing deserves grief. Just a pragmatic approach. Leaving aside Bhagavad Gita, leaving aside entire Vedanta, pragmatically also, there is no legitimate sorrow. We'll have to see first that, and then again we'll have to enter into Vedanta. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.